Right, we'll reconvene. So the next item on the agenda is amendments to delegations in relation to audit and risk and joint committee. Is that correct? I will hand over to Lacan Leith.
Through the chair, kia ora koutou. Just introduce myself to the new councillors. My name's Lacan Beach and I'm a legal advisor and I work under Beef Townshend, the General Counsel. This report seeks amendments to staff delegations and the delegations register and the Nelson Tasman Land Development Manual. We're not seeking any new delegations today. As Leif mentioned to you earlier, we'll hold a workshop in the new year and take any new delegations to you in the new year. We're just seeking to update the delegations register in the manual in response to a recent restructure with new job titles and renamed job titles, and that will enable our staff to carry on their operations. I do need to make two corrections in the report. The first one, so the local water done well entity manager, who was Richard Kirby, he was renamed to the group manager, Three Waters. And so we've just updated the resolution to reflect that but it's the same position. And so any powers that we propose to delegate to the local water done well entity manager will instead be recorded as being delegated to the group manager, Three Waters. And the other correction is on paragraph 5.24 of the report. It says that three managers are responsible for network infrastructure. Just to correct this, it's actually two managers, that being the group manager, community and customer, and the group manager, Three Waters. But there's no need to update the resolution in response to that because there's a generic definition proposed. So I take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McNamara.
Yeah. So these documents are public facing?
Through the chair, the manual is public facing. The delegations register is an internal document, so it's not on our website. Oh, sorry, it is on our website. The most recent version of the register hasn't been uploaded, is not on our website at the moment, as we're updating it in response to the restructure. My apologies.
Thank you, Councillor McNamara.
Yep, thank you. So this is heading to a workshop, all delegation review.
Through the chair, yes, we've got an ongoing delegations review project, and for new we need to update the register for the new council anyway, and also we had a project that's been going on for about 2 years to update it, to move it to an electronic one. So we're going to hold a workshop in the new year for the next set of delegations we'll seek council approval on.
I'm just wondering if prior to that, I could get a track change document from the 26th of October 23, when this last omnibus resolution existed.
Sorry, through the chair, can I just clarify, are you after a track changes version that tracks all of the changes in the delegations register since 2023? Because I don't think we hold that. We have versions and they're updated. We won't have one version that does it all.
Okay, I'm not sure how.
So you could circulate the versions,
yeah,
and people can, but you won't get a track changes. Yeah,
we have to track it ourselves. That would be appreciated. The CEO can exercise the powers of the members of the ELT, correct?
Sorry, through the chair, could you clarify your question?
It's proposed the CEO can exercise the powers of members of the ELT as a
Through the chair,
stopgap, whatever.
yeah, through the chair, that's correct. That just applies to those resolutions that were to ELT members. In this instance, so what there was there was occasions where specific delegations were made, for example, to the group manager, community infrastructure to negotiate a land sale, and it's proposed that we through this omnibus resolution, we redelegate that to the new person who's the new ELT member, which will be John Ridd in this instance, as customer and community group manager, and also Leonie as the chief executive officer will also hold that same delegation, and that just enables Leonie to exercise a delegation or re-sub-delegate, so we don't have to take it back to council with the structure, ELT structure changes again.
So, thank you. I guess my issue or concern is the instances in which the CEO can utilise that power. Like I could understand the ELT members sick, whatever, unavailable. Can the CEO? I'm just looking for oversight, because when an ELT member uses that delegation, we have a CEO presumably oversight. I'm just wondering if the CEO has a secondary oversight when exercising powers.
Through the chair, only if it's contained in a specific resolution of council. Otherwise, once you delegate a power to an officer, that officer can then use that power without having to report back to you.
So for me, that's a little bit of a concern, just given the news in the recent few weeks. High-ranking members of the police force, for example, who abuse their power. So,
Yeah.
so I'm just saying some kind of secondary backstop would cover us.
Through the chair, we need to let the flow of business keep going. Most of these delegations are not that high level. Have also been approved by council. You've already given the delegation, so couldn't exercise outside of that.
My point was, we delegate to the lowest thing. So a member of the ELT, for example, you would oversee their use of their power, I presume.
On a day-to-day basis, no, I wouldn't. It would be something that might be escalated to me. They've got the delegation, then they've got the authority to execute on that.
Okay.
I don't watch everything that they sign or.
Right. Another point is, and point 3, in this version, we're delegating authority to the chief executive officer to hold. Now I can't find them. The same delegations as the membership of the executive leadership team. In the last omnibus plan change, it was to the existing members or members of the existing executive leadership team, which did confine the power to, I guess, that term or that structure. This one doesn't. It's a change of what's previously been in there.
Are you proposing to change that?
I'm just pointing out that it's a change from the previous omnibus delegation.
I haven't got a track change version in front of me.
Through the chair, apologies, I'm struggling to understand what the question is or what your concern is in this one.
So in point 2, it's got the executive leadership team are to be held by the current members of the executive leadership team. In the 23 example, the chief executive officer was also as the current members of the executive leadership team. Whereas now it's just the members of the executive leadership team, which doesn't bind it to a structure or a timeframe. That's what I'm saying. So it's a change, whether it's you want to litigate or not. I'm just
Yeah, but if it's for noting, then I think we're good. Councillor Neuber, and then Councillor Kinnemont, and then Councillor Morgan.
I'll be very quick, sorry. Just picking up on where Dean has left it with the track changes. So when we are making changes to the delegation register, can we not keep a document that tracks the changes that have been made, that so we don't end up in a situation where we might not know what has changed?
Through the chair, we keep we have like a version control where we keep we have versions that we update. So we hold a piece of each version of the delegations register. In terms of the track changes, those aren't recorded in the versions because we accept those, but we do hold because of we do have them in attachments to the reports. So we can go through back the council reports, and you can see track changes in those reports, and in the version history, it will reference the report. That.
So when you say you can do that, is that just internally? Is that just us and staff, or anybody who wants to have a look into that could do that?
Through the chair. So the only version published online is the current version of the delegations register. So while staff do hold these documents, they're not published online.
Can they be legitimate?
Through the chair, in certain circumstances, yes, we would release it under Legoima.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kinnemont.
Thank you, through the chair. I have a delegations register here, dated the 30th of June 2021, which at the rear has 9 pages of versions of amendments that have been done. And the last one here is the 9th of October 2025. If we're going to do a workshop, is it worth reviewing the whole document and seeing what's still pertinent? It's 4 or 5 years old.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. We are going to do a refresh delegations register for the new term, and this paper here is just making changes to the existing one so that the delegations can continue until we've taken that new version to the council for your approval.
Through the chair, if I can just add to that. So the purpose of the workshop early next year is to bring you the entire delegations register for you to determine and discuss whether you are comfortable with the powers that are currently delegated to staff. And subsequent to that, there will be a report to council with the entire delegations register attached where you can actually make a decision on it.
And so I think the question is, when we get to that point, in order to see the changes that are being suggested, if there are changes, whatever version we receive at that point, will it be clear to people? Because it is very difficult if you've got a very big document and a very big new document to figure out what's changed. So I think, so setting aside today's decision, but that will there be a simple way to understand what is being suggested in the new delegations register and how that compares to what is contained in the current one? I think that seems to be the crux of the question.
Gotcha. Through the chair, if there are new changes proposed, then they will be tracked in the register. Otherwise, it'll just be what's currently delegated to staff. Yeah.
Sorry, what was there before and what's being proposed new? Okay. Yeah, I'll just come back to Councillor Morgan. I'll come back to you, Councillor McNamara. Councillor Morgan.
My question is,
when I look through the delegations through the committee structure and the chief executive, I think at the procurement committee level and the change, there was no delegation on property purchases or sales in that process. But I look here and I've got some confusion in this because some of the 23 October to the last 2 or 3 years, to 26 October to the 25, include authority and delegation to sell property. So can you just explain where do the delegations and property lie? It's not clear to me.
Through the chair, so there's like a general. So I guess the starting point is that council as a body corporate has authority to sell, and that sits at council, and council has delegated some. Has delegated some a general delegation in terms of property. They've delegated some powers to the group managers for leasing, but there's been no general power delegated to staff to sell land, from what I understand. So they need, whenever staff need to come and need to bring a proposal to sell land, they bring it to the council, and then the council, if they approve that, they might make a resolution to subdelegate the responsibility for executing and taking out that sale to specific staff members. So
just
Correct. Okay, thank you, Councillor McNamara.
Yeah, so I was just going back to your point of what we get is this document and the next document at the workshop. I'd kind of like to see sort of the 3 years where I wasn't here, what changes have made, just to give us an idea of the progression of delegations, if possible.
I mean, I think we'll leave that as a request. The question of whether it's entirely possible to have a 3-year track changes roll, but but you'll definitely receive the versions, and then the final comparison between the last existing version and whatever's being proposed new will be track changed. So access to the older versions, and then a track change version between the last approved one and whatever's being proposed new. Yep. Cool. Thank you. Councillor Greening.
Thanks. I just want to get my head around the shift in focus to being more general in terms of the tier 2 managers and the reference to that. I can understand what you've done on 2, which is like the ELT roles have changed, their job titles have changed, and also the functions beneath those jobs have changed, and you're mapping where the delegations go, right? I understand that. And you've got the ELT, the CEO as a backstop, again, for any transitions that might occur going forward. I understand that. I'm just wondering why we're being more generic at the tier 2 managers. Don't we know what their job titles are and what their functions are, and shouldn't we be mapping those as well?
Through the chair, the reason why we took this approach in regards to those specific resolutions was because we didn't have a record of every resolution, and also there's sort of some work still going through, just because with the split up of the group manager community infrastructure, where his delegations lie. Some went to the strategy and group manager strategy and finance, and some went to the group manager customer and community. So with those ones, we just sort of we're just seeking a general omnibus resolution, and then that'll be at the ELT level. We can work out internally where the specific group managers will be.
So what you're saying is you don't know where the functions lie, so you're giving it broadly to tier 3 managers and hoping someone will action whatever delegation is required.
Through the chair, that's correct. We don't know for all the specific resolutions at this stage.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions, is someone prepared to move the resolution contained on the board, on the screen, sorry, on the board, it's slightly old school. Move Deputy Mayor Maru, is there a seconder? Seconded Councillor Kinnemont. I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. So I think between the upcoming workshop on terms of reference and delegations to committees and the early New Year workshop in relation to the wider delegations model, there is likely to be some conversation would take from that previous discussion. So,
Just
Councillor
quickly,
Greening.
when we do that work, you will then know who your tier 2 managers are. You've mapped it to the functions by then, or are you still just leaving it there as a general? I'm just wondering. Because I think if you're managing this delegation system, you'll want to know you'll be searching for shifts and job titles because there's no specification of function in your delegation, and to part tier 2 managers is so general. I think you'll subsequently make mistakes in not picking things up.
Yeah. So the question is there likely to be more specificity in the delegations that we'll consider early in the new year?
Through the chair, yes, there will be.
Okay, thank you. Right, next up, non-vesting options. Welcome, Kim and Marie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kia ora koutou, ko Kim Arnold tōku inō. I'm Kim, I'm in the infrastructure, I'm senior infrastructure planning advisor.
Sorry, just before we carry on,
sure.
Just noting that at the start of the meeting, Councillor Morgan declared an interest, and so we will come and find you once we get back to the next item.
Kia ora. So I'm Kim, I'm in the infrastructure planning team, and we also have Marie.
Marie Calendar te Koingoa. So my role is corporate counsel, and I've been involved in this project for 3 and a bit years now from the legal side of it, working with Kim and Dwayne and others.
Kim.
Kia ora. So thank you for the opportunity to bring this report to you today. There are no changes to the report itself, no amendments, but hopefully you've received a supplementary piece of information last night, fairly late yesterday. So we take the report as read, and happy to answer any questions. But I guess very briefly, the report really boils down to a gap in Land Transport Management Act legislation and a gap in NZTA funding. So this issue will be very familiar to some of you, we're aware, but not to others. So really this decision is about keeping pressure on government to change that legislation. Marie, did you want to add?
Yeah, so just a very brief summary for those of you who are new, because I'm conscious that this is a concept that's probably quite unusual. So the usual process when a subdivision is undertaken is that land for roads and parks and reserves, vests is the word used, but the ownership transfers to the council, and the council then, as road controlling authority, runs the roads, maintains them, does all that sort of thing, and similar things for parks. But with roads, NZTA fund 51% of the road maintenance in the normal scheme of things when council owns the land. The non-vesting issue was raised with us, April, May 2022, when Wakatū Corporation watched develop land at originally Paul Street and then Motueka West. And they, because the land is very special to them, it's part of their corpus land, which they have agreed with their shareholders they will not reduce. They don't want to vest land in council. They're totally happy for council to look after the roads, control the roads, run the roads and the parks just in the normal way. They just want the name on the title to stay as the proprietors of Wakatū. And there are other organisations around New Zealand wanting to do similar things. And so since then, we've been working with Wakatū to try and come up with a solution that meets all the requirements of council and community to have roads and parks and that to operate in the usual way, but allows them to keep the title and the name of the proprietors of Wakatū. And we've come up with a solution, which is for roads and easement, and for parks it's likely to be a lease. The problem was that when we went to check with NZTA about the funding, which is, substantial sums of money over the life of a road, we found that because council would not own the land and have council's name on the title, wouldn't be vested in council, the NZTA are not able to fund that road maintenance, which is, as I said, a substantial amount of money. And so this is quite problematic for the development at Motueka West and for other developments. And along the way, we've also discovered that we're not the only council dealing with this sort of situation. Initially, we thought we were, and we'd put submissions in on the last government policy statement on transport maintenance and got no response. And Wakatū did it with us. We did it jointly. We've also written to the minister and basically got a response back that he said the issue is not sufficiently common or critical to justify the need for legislative change. But since then, we've discovered that up in Waikato Tainui iwi are doing a large development there, and Waikato District Council contacted us, and they're very keen to work with us to put pressure on central government to change the legislation. So there's two things that they can do to change. First, as an interim, they can change the government policy statement, because it can, under the current legislation, current act, the government policy statement can be amended for the next 3 years and subsequent 3 years if it's approved, to allow a council or allowing NZTA to provide road maintenance funding for certain private roads. So that could be done as an interim, but in the longer term, we really want the Land Transport Management Act to be amended. And that legislation already has a model for this in Section 22, which allows for lands that the Maori Land Court declares to be a Maori roadway to be funded by NZTA. And NZTA have said, well, that's what Wakatū should do. They should go to the Maori Land Court. However, that's a very long, slow and complicated process, and there's no certainty that they'll get the outcome they want, because it's the way the legislation there is drafted. Te Tui Whenua Māori Act doesn't really contemplate subdivisions, and it's never been tested. It's more for land way out in the hills somewhere that's isolated, and people need to be able to get there via some road that's privately owned. So it's not something that Wakatū Incorporation want to pursue, because it would, as I say, take ages, be very expensive, and it might not get a good outcome. And Waikato Tainui are of the same view, because both the land is, in both places, is general land. It's not Maori land of any sort. It's under the general category, and they want to keep it in their title. So that's our problem. Suggestions have been made by Wakatū of possible solutions with targeted rates or some kind of bond for maybe 10 years or so. But our recommendation is that we don't go with either of those, because they would be short-term kind of fixes that might work in one scenario but not work well for another, and they would take the pressure off central government, which would mean we wouldn't get the legislative change that really is needed. So that's a long summary. I hope it's helpful for the new members.
Okay, thank you, Kim. I'll come to questions imminently.
No,
Kim.
happy with that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so open for questions. Councillor Neubauer.
Thank you. Look, I'm really interested in the long-term financial position for our council and what certain projects do to make that situation better or worse. And I understand that this is a situation where we've got a reasonably significant development that's hitting a bureaucratic snag, if I may call it that. And there are 3 different options that we could pursue that have different implications on our financial position in the future. To really understand what it does, I'm not that interested in whether we lose $1.2 million in central government funding now. What's really important for the future is how does the actual rates revenue compare to our ongoing costs that we take on from a development like this. I understand I've asked this question a wee while ago, and I did get a response, and I think that would be really interesting to look at what, because at 51% quantify in road maintenance subsidy that's at stake was quantified. So I understand that overall we're talking about $104,000 in annual costs for the roads, plus depreciation of $134,000 annually. So that adds up to $238,000 plus minus 20%, of which roughly 50%, I suppose, is what's at stake here. So if I purely go on these figures, $115,000, $120,000 is peanuts compared to a foregone rates revenue of $0.8 to $1 million per year. So I think there's something missing in here. I think what we haven't quantified yet as ongoing OPEX would be interest that we might have to pay, but also more than roads. I think there'll be pipes, stormwater infrastructure. There'll be contributions to pump stations, additional rubbish collection, and God knows what. And I know it's a massive task to kind of tease that all out in detail, but in some way we do need to understand, at least as a rough figure, to understand what we can give, because I mean some of these solutions here mean that council would take on more responsibility financially, or you get it. So in order to assess that, we'd really need to understand how this development stacks up long term.
I might jump in if that's okay. I guess coming to the cost, I mean, it's roughly $250 a year per property that in costs, if you want to view it that way, and that is only the road maintenance, not the depreciation and so on and so forth. And I do understand the temptation of looking at sort of an average rates revenue of maybe $3,500, $4,000 a year per dwelling and going, well, that compares favourably. I guess the point to make is that that $4,000 contributes to the full range of services that council provides. It is not a ratio of 20-1 or anything like that. It's those same services, the same dwellings are connected to the water, the wastewater, stormwater costs that need to be funded from that. There was significant stormwater invested in this area and so on and so forth. The other thing I think to bear in mind is, and we did hint at it in the report, that the market has cooled, the housing market has cooled. And for other reasons, Wakatu are reconsidering the timing of this development. And, I don't think I'd be unfair in saying they're not rushing to complete it in the next year or two. It's probably some time away. And I think that's important context for deciding whether you can maintain this position now or trying to rush to do something in the interim.
And for the future, with similar decisions, can we get a little bit of a feel for how our operational expenditure would sit against the expected rates revenue from a development like that? So we've got.
I think there's two slightly. Sorry, that's a butt in, but I think there's two slightly. There's the bigger question, which is the question you're asking over the total amount into water, wastewater, stormwater investment and its relationship to rates revenue, which is not the subject of this particular resolution. But so we're trying to define the two things, which when we review annual plans, development contributions policies, all of that analysis is pertinent to that conversation. In this case, the resolution is very specific to the roads and the non-vesting aspect. And the resolution is effectively to say, we'll look at solutions so long as they are not imposing any additional cost over and above the normal way of accounting for, in this case, roading contributions and maintenance. So I think so we just need to confine today's discussion to this particular thing. The wider discussion about development cost of versus revenue is a debate discussion for another day. That's all I'm just trying to be clear about. So
I
which
to-
we will get to have in a whole range of different forums in relation to both growth, planning, development contributions, and rates. But
I totally
not
get that.
today.
But it is relevant if the three different options that we've got today enable or not enable a development to go ahead. So that trade-off, we need to understand what the financial implications are.
Through the chair. So essentially the other two options that have been considered, one is basically an upfront payment that roughly accounts for the maintenance cost for 10 years of just the road. All the other things are rate funded, their contribution to water and wastewater and stormwater and so on, and all the other parts of the district that they will contribute to. So that's in the vicinity of $400,000 or $500,000. Doesn't take care of depreciation. It won't deal with a renewal in year 14 or whatever of this development, which will be $1 million plus sort of thing. So it is just a short-term measure. That gives you some sense. It's about 50K a year. I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question? Oh, the other option, sorry, the targeted rate, sorry, forgive me. The targeted rate, if you were to go down that option, it's quite an administratively burdensome way of doing it. That would be enduring, however, but it would be in that order of sort of $250 a year trying to be recovered from these properties.
Yes, so what I'm saying is in either of these options that you've just laid out now, the council would be essentially paying more than we would in option 3, the position that we've got at the moment. It would be conceivable that the council would want to take an option that's more enabling if the payoff in the long run was that we'd get more rates revenue and that the cost associated with that rates revenue would be considerably lower, which would mean would make a profit.
And so the report does cover the broad spectrum of costs we will either face or the revenue or not get if this development doesn't proceed. The reason for cautioning you about how quickly it might proceed is I don't know that in the short term there is a genuine opportunity cost here. It's not likely that Wakatu Development are going to be rushing out to construct this development in the next year or two.
No, and can I also, so I'll come to a list of other questions just so you're all aware. Councillor Kinnemont, Councillor Walker, Councillor Wood, Councillor McNamara and Councillor Greening. So I just wanted to clarify one more thing. In the normal course of events, Wakatu could proceed, correct me if I'm wrong, proceed with this development because it's zoned and for a range of reasons it hasn't proceeded. This is one of them. The timing issue is another. But whether or not we agree or support any of these three options is not the determining factor whether the development as it has been zoned and planned can continue. It can if they chose just to vest the road.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's what I'm just trying to clarify. So this decision wouldn't either make it hard. Yeah, this decision is not precluding them developing or making it easier. It is simply giving them a different option for the vesting of the land. The other bigger questions or the major issues, this resolution can't either make those things happen faster or slow them down. Should they just choose to vest the road, they could continue with the development. So I'll move on next to Councillor Kinnemont.
Thank you. Through the chair, and a very quick thing. We want to continue to seek legislative change. Would it not be better that local government New Zealand headed this up as opposed to Tasman District Council?
I think the most effective thing we can do at the moment in terms of getting legislative change is to work with Waikato Tainui. They have a lot of influence in Wellington. They have the Ministry of Maori Development working very closely on their project, and just it's well known that Waikato Tainui is very influential iwi, very large organisation that has a lot of influence in Wellington. So getting local government New Zealand to pick this up, it might take years for that even to happen, I suspect. But it was through the Local Government Lawyers Conference last year that actually Waikato came to us because I spoke at that conference to see if anyone else had the same problem. And it was through that Waikato District Council came to us this year. So we see a combined pressure on government of us and Waikato Tainui and Waikato District Council and Wakatoa Corporation together going, I think, as the most efficient and effective possibility of getting some real notice in Wellington.
I think adding another player in the mix probably makes it more parties to corral than less. So, Councillor Walker.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thank you. So we've been on this journey for quite some time. We seem to get very little traction moving forward because we bounce around on the same things, or we get something moved, like they move the goalposts. So collaboratively, we got IAF Infrastructure Acceleration Fund money, of which we've had to implement some of that, haven't we? So some work has already been done prior to us making this decision today, and there is a time frame on when that fund had to be used, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Through you, Mr. Chair. So we are held up by the milestone of the resource consent application being approved before we can get the bit of funding. Yeah.
So is there implications with the timing on that money if something doesn't happen sooner than later?
Again, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, well, it just forms part of the whole picture in terms of the financial benefits or disbenefits, I think. Yeah, but definitely it is time bound. Time is crucial.
Through the chair, I think our time is nearly up, and it will be probably up before Christmas if there isn't some kind of major movement or change.
So that's the time frame in terms of the IAF funding remaining available, not the broader time frame of whether the development happens or whether.
Correct. And you know, if there isn't some kind of resolution to this, effectively an impasse between the two parties, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Wakatoa signalled to now what's the name of the NIF folk, that they don't feel like they can meet their obligations under the agreement because it's a three-way agreement, which will effectively draw a line under this.
Yeah.
And will that financially impede Tasman District Council and its ratepayers?
Through the chair, I might answer this one. So the main thing we offered to do in addition to what we had already planned in the previous long-term plan was a roundabout on Whakarewa. And there's been a bit of money spent on that, but effectively we would not do that anymore. The stormwater work, the water work and the wastewater work were already in our long-term plan, and there is in fact more work scheduled which has been paused. But so if you reflect on that, yes, we've invested money in enabling development capacity in the Motueka West area, and that won't be taken up quickly.
If I may, just a couple more points. Thank you for that. So obviously you went to conference and you got to know Waikato Tainui's position. I have no idea how long they've been kind of bantering this around and trying to get some traction. Are we comparing similar parcels of land and how much housing that they've got? Are we on a par? And have we scoped out any other council within New Zealand in a similar place to us? Because I know when it came to us and you said we're going to do a targeted rate, I went, hold it up. Does anyone else in New Zealand do this? And the answer was no. And since that conversation, which seems forever ago, we've got to where we are today. But in the process, we found out about Waikato. Do we know that there aren't others to help push this case with support?
We're not aware of any others. There was complete silence in the room a year ago when I spoke about it in Auckland, but then subsequently Waikato District Council approached us because this hopu hopu development that Waikato Tainui are doing is on land that is very sensitive and important land to Waikato Tainui, and the Maori Queen has said there will be no vesting. She's made a very definite statement and it's been in the media. And so they want a solution that involves no vesting, and so that's why Waikato District Council came to us, because they knew that we were already working on this. our expectation is that in time there will be other iwi organisations who want to take the same approach and have been sort of held up from development because they don't have a solution to the vesting option. So that is part of the argument to take to Wellington, and the value of the Ministry of Maori Development being involved, because he can talk about those things a little more perhaps than we can. But from my previous experience in Taranaki, I'm very conscious of iwi wanting to develop their land. And if they don't have to give some of it up to do so, that will make their life a little easier. So that's part of the story to take to Wellington, that, you know, if Wellington don't make some changes, they're holding up housing development that's desperately needed, particularly in Maori communities where there is a real need. And that's the situation Hopukapu is to provide low-cost housing, just as it is at Motueka West.
And I guess my final point through you, Mayor, is that if this resolution goes through today, this has no bearing on whether there are 200 individual houses or super lots or anything that land is used for. Today's resolution is purely on the non-vesting
Correct.
of that land.
Correct. There are other
So does that come at a cost to our wider community rate payers? If I was to say, yep, let's pass that, what is that signing my rate payers up to?
As far as I'm aware, same as the answer to Councillor Neubauer's question, if the vesting issue wasn't an issue and they just vested, all of those other issues would still remain. So passing this resolution doesn't make them either better or go away. Right. They still remain there to be considered, but through different conversations than the one we're having today. So, correct. Thank you. Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Mayor Tim. Just going back to the easement agreement and looking specifically at protections for the ratepayers. So obviously we're putting an investment into roading on someone else's land. Who would have the obligation to maintain the road access to the consented properties once the easement is in place? And could it possibly be leverage used to maintain those roads in future if the landowner decides they want to change the roads or block access to the roads? Does the easement protect us from that? And so just really explaining the protections to the ratepayer in the easement agreement itself. Thank you.
Okay, it's probably not the forum for a detailed analysis of an easement instrument, but the way the easement instrument has been drafted, and we've used Council's external lawyers to help us with this, it's drafted so that Council has all the same powers it has as a roading authority on any road around the district. And that relates to powers around allowing utilities to be put in there and the maintenance of the road. And there is provision in the easement so that because for Motueka West, the plan is that they are having leasehold developments with leases of 150 years in many cases. So they're conscious that in the future, Motueka's housing needs may change. Inundation of water in parts of Motueka and all sorts of things. So there's provision in there for if everyone wants to do things differently, we work together to come out with any changes to the roading. But the whole premise of the easement is that Council would have the same control and authority over the roading as it has on any other road.
Just clarity on that. The obligation to keep access to a property is on the council or the landowner?
Through the chair. So the roads under the easement would be under council's full control as if it was a normal road, and our obligations to if something happens on that road, if there's damage, we would need to repair it, make sure it's accessible, people can use it. The responsibility for private access ways to individual private properties is the landowner's. So all of the driveways you see around the place, for example, they're effectively on, at that point, part council land, but the obligation to look after and maintain those relates to the landowner in question. We don't carry that responsibility. We're responsible for the roads, and that's effectively the same arrangement here.
So in terms of the legal situation around access and everything else to do with a road, it's effectively the same. The responsibilities don't change in any way, shape, or form under this proposal than they would if we owned the road. That's the way I understand it.
But Dan, so if the landowner in the future ever decided to change their view on having a road there, they couldn't, because the obligation to maintain road access is ours as a council. Thank you.
That is, so unless there's any contrary view.
But yeah, through the chair. So the easement is on the title of the land. It protects our interest, and they can't change that unilaterally. So literally, it's enshrined on the property title. They can't just turn up one day and say, "Oh, actually, this doesn't work anymore for us." They could, but they can't change it unilaterally. There's a discussion that will ensue.
Okay. Councillor McNamara, just so we're clear, Councillor McNamara, then Councillor Green, then Councillor Ellis.
Just in terms of Councillor Noibo's thing about rating for profit, I'm not sure that's something we do.
Okay, let's not go. Let's have a conversation for another day.
Like Councillor Walker, I'm kind of frustrated because I was here sort of 4 odd years ago when it came to the table. At the time, I said, I can't see the cost benefit analysis. We were going to spend a bunch of money. And the point that the presentation was made to us was that they wanted to retain ownership of the land, and putting a road on it would cause future generations to be tied to that kind of development. 50 years down the road, they may decide that they wanted to redevelop whole land, and that road would then be perhaps impeding on that vision. And at the time I said, we have provision as a council to stop the road at any point, so they could come to us and ask for a road closure. Here we are 4 years later and we're still in the same position. And I would really like to know how much both parties have spent progressing this to a point of nowhere. So if we had the easement, the infrastructure we put there has got a lifespan. If they were to decide that they wanted to change it, would there be a trigger like the irrigators have if we change the TRMP that doesn't suit them, $50 million penalty? Or how would that discussion look?
Through the chair, the easement is registered on the title of the land, and those easement rights are property rights that the council has. The landowner can't unilaterally change that. So once we have those easement rights, they're ours to keep.
Presumably the whole point of this exercise is that easement gives them more flexibility.
No, the whole point of the exercise is they retain the underlying ownership. Every other component of it, it's the classic, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a road. So that's the way I understand it. So the only underlying objective is to retain that ownership of the underlying land title. And as you correctly point out, they could come to us at some point down the track and say, look, we want to redevelop this whole thing, and with your agreement, can we shift the road or make it slightly different? Conversely, the council could go to them and say, look, for this X, Y, and Z, we want to do something different. As you correctly pointed out, there's a process for stopping roads now. And again, the road could ultimately be stopped by agreement of both parties. So at the end of the day, that's, to me, is the underlying. I share your frustration for how long it has taken to arrive at precisely nowhere really further ahead, other than we now have other parties with similar interests, and maybe we can get some movement on NZTA's funding of the 51% share of the maintenance. But yeah, it is. Had this all been sorted out 3 years ago and the property market had maybe been slightly better, there may well be houses here now. So yeah, I 100% share your frustration. It doesn't help us solve it any faster. They're just being frustrated.
And just to clarify on that timing thing, there has been progress in that we've negotiated an easement, and that in itself was quite a major undertaking because it's not like an ordinary access way easement. This is quite complex, and everything was set to go but and with the NZTA who've held it up for probably a year and a half, 2 years now. It's been very slow to get anything from there. The mention about costs that everyone's incurred, Wakatu Incorporation have actually paid council's legal fees to negotiate that easement.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Greening.
Yes, I know this is kind of slightly academic, given what we've heard that Wakatu is slowing this down, but it's going to be less academic when they start speeding up. I just want to, and you may not be able to elucidate, but I'm just wanting to get a sense of what NZTA's problem is with ownership, because that to me is really a question of time. Ownership is time. So a lease is ownership in time, and freehold is forever, right? So I'm just trying to get a sense of why they've got to hang up on ownership, given their funding is probably for certain periods of time anyway. Why can't we align the leasing with the funding so that they don't have a problem if the ownership is a problem? My other question is Wakatu open, or have they explored some form of other vehicle, like a trust, purpose trust, where the beneficial interest is held by them and can result back to them if the purpose isn't fulfilled? So are we exploring those options as well?
Through the chair, to answer your first question, the problem with the ownership is that the definitions of roads between various bits of legislation, the word road has variety, is defined in different ways, and a private road does not meet the definition of a road under the Local Government Act. And the legislation around land transport maintenance, it has to be a road that is owned by the council for them to be able to fund. No. We won't own the land.
We don't control the land under a lease.
We won't have a lease. We will have an easement.
Okay.
Leases we'll use for reserves, but this will be an easement. So it gives us rights.
Okay, so it's not a lease. You used the word lease, so I thought you were talking about a lease. But okay, so it's not a lease, it's just an easement.
Just an easement, yeah. The lease relates to reserves, not to the road.
And there's no entertainment of doing a lease arrangement then to get around the ownership? There's no way they would lease us the land to give us that ownership?
Well, it wouldn't give us, you're thinking of a leasehold interest. I don't know that would satisfy NZTA, but a lease wasn't seen as a good option. An easement was seen as the best way for long term to deal with this, because it has to be a permanent thing. There's no use having a lease for 50 years and then suddenly at the end of 50 years we've got no road because we don't own it, we don't have the lease anymore.
But the NZTA wouldn't have a problem with funding because
Marie can't answer NZTA's. So if you know what I mean, you're asking her to give you NZTA's hang up.
Yeah. So hopefully that issue will be explored a bit more in Wellington. NZTA, because it sounds like this is an NZTA hang up. But
no, NZTA's hang up is the definitions of the word road.
Yes,
and a private road does not fit the definition of a road under the Local Government Act, and it doesn't fit the definitions of road in terms of getting land transport maintenance funds.
And to be fair to NZTA, they're implementing their legislation. So they may actually be open to the concept. They just don't have any option. So at the end of the day, we can't resolve NZTA's thing other than by getting the legislation.
Can I finish? You keep on interrupting me all the time. Running commentary.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry, Pub. So I think that's just a definition that NZTA can work out in its own legislation. But have they explored then a trust arrangement, or is that because they'll lose the legal title and only become beneficial? What's the story there?
Yeah, they don't want to change the name on the title. The name on the title needs to stay as the proprietors of Wakatu. And your query about NZTA, NZTA even went so far as investing in a legal opinion from their lawyers, which they shared with us confidentially, that spelled out in great detail why they could not fund it. It's not that they don't necessarily want to, they simply can't, because the rules are the rules. And that's what we're seeking change to, is change to that legislation so that the definitions work to allow the funding. Yeah.
And so I think after 4 years or 3.5 years, there's been a lot of exploration of what is the best, and this is where we've arrived at. So I don't think there's any been lack of investigation into options, considerations, variations, leases, easements. We have now what the collective agreement is the best way forward. The only way to progress it is through some form of legislative change. That's where we've arrived at after many years and much time. Councillor Ellis.
Oh God, I've completely lost track. Because the way I understood this is quite different to the way this conversation's gone. So I want to ask a couple of clarifying questions. So 2.1, does that allow an arrangement to be made with Wakatu that could put on a targeted rate to cover those maintenance costs? Or would it have to come back to council before anything like that happened?
So through the chair, that's really, so the word there, additional costs on ratepayers, and so I interpret ratepayers broadly, including ratepayers who might be residents on the what will probably be leasehold land. It's really saying that if there is a deficit in NZTA funding, it needs to come from Wakatu.
Good, because that was kind of what my understanding was, and I was just making sure that I was clear on that, because that brings in a whole other issues about all sorts of rates for emissions or development contribution remissions that could happen into the future. So is this only pertaining to, because my ideal situation would be to have the government pass the legislation so that everybody's covered all the time, and I cannot reiterate how important it is to actually get this resolved legally. I understand that it becomes yet another bureaucratic process, but we wind up with these processes for a reason. So by doing this, does it set a precedent for other developments in the way we treat them, or it just simply gives a direction that we want that direction coming through from government?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it's definitely the latter. We want an enduring solution that covers every similar situation like this that arises. We know there's multiple ones in Motueka. We know there's probably ones further right across the region, and we certainly know about other regions throughout New Zealand. So yes, we're after a long-term solution, not a short one that we have to revisit every bit of development. Like a small development on King Edward Street, the administration of that would be far outweigh the benefit. So that answers your question.
So long as I'm reassured that it's not going to, that we can't move ahead with anything that's going to have an implication, because every development is going to be quite different on how it impacts other ratepayers. So cool, thank you.
Councillor Neubauer, and then Councillor Murray.
Neubauer. Yes, just quickly in response to Councillor McNamara, some developments return a positive rates revenue, other developments return a negative rates revenue. It was my mistake to call the positive rates revenue a profit. Of course, we're not making a profit, but it is absolutely desirable that we have more developments making it contributing to positive rates revenue, because that means long term we can lower the rates. My question, and I think that's possibly the elephant in the room, and maybe because I'm a new councillor, I'm just not privy to this information. Why does Wakatu not want to vest this land in council?
Sure, it's true, Mr. Chair. So not sure if we mention it in detail in the report, but it relates back to 1977 when land which is called corpus land was vested with Wakatu. Now, Wakatu's policy for that corpus land is that they maintain a minimum level of ownership of land, and they right at this point, I understand they're not far above that. So their policy requires them not to give up any more land as part of that corpus land that was given to them. And they also, I understand, are required to ensure the value of that land is maintained. So, it's in their interest to develop it. That answers your question.
So that means even if they wanted to, they couldn't vest that land in council?
Look, the policy that they have now has been established through, I believe, previous AGMs with their shareholders. And there are probably many reasons for why they have adopted that policy, but effectively it's a difficult policy for the organisation to unwind. And I think we just that is probably the state of play today.
I think it's a little awkward for council staff to speak for Wakatu. Absolutely, if you want a better understanding of Wakatu's like philosophy and why they don't want to, it's best to have somebody from Wakatu to come and explain that to us. So I think it's always awkward for council staff to try and interpret or speak on behalf of somebody else, particularly in this space. But that's absolutely something that we can. This is not an issue that's going to go away after this resolution. So I think as part of the process, and I'm looking at Renee, I think it would be useful to understand Wakatu's approach to land vesting and development as one of the major landowners and developers in the region. So that's something Renee will follow up for us. Thank you, Councillor Murray, Deputy Murray.
Thank you, Tim. I'm happy to move this resolution. So I've had the luxury of meeting with the team prior to this, before the report was getting drafted, and sort of follow the insight. So this isn't about Wakatu per se. Yes, it impacts Wakatu's land development at the moment, but this is about council making or setting a precedent that for private roads we may entertain paying 51% of if NZCA don't do that. And the fact that Waikato Tainui are also entering the same challenge brings me some hope that this may get resolved at a level that it needs to get resolved at. So in a subdivision with 200 houses in Motueka is absolutely critical for Motueka. And if it was a different story saying this was the only thing that was holding up that development starting tomorrow, we may be having a different conversation. But we've got some time to get precedent in, to get some policy change with another council and another geographical area to get this sorted. So it's a great conversation, but this isn't bigger than that. This is allowing Wakatu and our staff, along with Waikato Tainui and the Waikato District Council, to go and lobby government, get a change, get the 51% funding for essentially a private road that's Māori land, and that's sort of it. So I'm happy to move.
Yeah, I'm happy to second. I sat on the plan change for this land, and the sooner we get it done, the better.
Okay, thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. Councillor McNamara.
Yeah, just 2 points. The point you just raised about private roads. So does that open it up to anybody with a private road?
So the policy was very deliberately not just Māori land. It is any developer who may choose to not vest. Most developers, to be honest.
Existing land? Because we have private roads now.
Yeah, but the difference between a private road and vesting land for a public road. So Dwayne, I'm sure, can clarify, but it's not suggesting that we'll start picking up the maintenance cost of private roads. This is only where a road is effectively serving as a public road, but not on council-owned land. So a very distinct difference.
We have that easement instrument in place that secures our role as an RCA, Road Controlling Authority. That is not the case if you're thinking of places like Waimea Estates and Avida and things like that.
No, I was more thinking private access in the country.
No, very distinctly not.
The other one is how much, what's the cost to committing to this? Continue to seek legislative change?
Predominantly staff costs through you, Mr. Mayor. So staff time.
Like, do we have a ballpark idea of what we're committing to? Or is it just open checkbook?
We couldn't give you that off the cuff at this stage.
So if it's staff time, it is staff time that, yes, there are consequences for other things they may be doing, but ultimately we have staff to do things like this, and some of their time is going to be dedicated to progressing this if this resolution is passed.
Well, it's just we've been told, we can't have an extra person in here to do a video or whatever, one FTE, because we're trying to squeeze staff time. So some kind of indication of how many staff we're funding or whatever.
One thing I will say is that this resolution helps to align on a lot of discussion with Wakatu that we've been having about options, including those other options. So we'll be able to stop that now because we have a very clear position that you've decided. And that's actually a bit of a blessing for us. I mean, it's not great that we didn't get to an outcome, but it's great that we can stop investing in a time in something that's not going to go anywhere. in terms of whether investing in time in this outcome, I guess I would look through the arrangement with Wakatu and see that if we can get this outcome, it's really part of our meeting our growth obligations and getting 200 homes in Motueka West, and part of our commitment to and obligations to provide for growth in the district. Certainly less time if we're butting heads against a brick wall. But the good news is if we invest more time, and it's probably because we're getting traction.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing further, I will look to put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Resolution is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So if we do the temporary road closure, probably because that should be relatively quick, and then we will come to Gwynnie and Rob in relation to the biosecurity report. Welcome,
Thank you,
Jamie.
Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, councillors. For those who don't know me, I'm Jamie McPherson. I'm the Transportation Manager. This report that I'm bringing to you is, dare I say it, one of the simple and straightforward matters that the council deals with. You'll see me presenting a few of these over time. So anytime an organisation wants to temporarily close a road for the purposes of an event, that needs to be approved through a resolution of council. So the event being considered today is the Tākaka Christmas Parade. The recommendation is that the temporary road closure be approved, and I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you. This is one of those things that shouldn't take too long, but you just never know. Councillor Greening.
Happy to move, looking for a second.
Excellent. Who would like to second? Councillor Fernahoe, thank you very much. Any conversation or discussion? Questions? Councillor Kinnemont.
It is a question through the mayor. We normally get the centre parade for Richmond at the same time. There you go. I'm out of it. Right.
Councillor Neubauer.
Should we delegate decisions like these to staff for the future?
Excellent question.
Through the mayor, I'm ready for that question because it has come up before. Unfortunately, Schedule 10 of the Local Government Act 1974 specifically precludes the delegation of this power to an officer. So, unfortunately, no.
So you may find that this happens more than you care to think about, that things we might like to delegate we can't, and things we might not want to we have to, and all these sort of things. So good question though. Councillor McNamara.
Just a comment. Thank you for your very detailed and well thought out report.
Right, that was it. Excellent. Thank you, Jamie. Well done. I will put the resolution. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. And then last up on our agenda today, biosecurity.
As always, we come with show and tell. So I'm going to pass these around.
Through the chair, Gwynnie, and would you like to introduce yourselves so that the new councillors know who you are?
Kia ora, my name's Gwynnie Coleman. I'm the Marine and Terrestrial Biomanager, and
Barber, I'm the Senior Biosecurity Officer here at the council.
so we'll take the report as read, but if you don't mind, I'll take a bit of a moment just to explain biosecurity and how it operates, particularly for our new councillors in this council. So we have 4 biosecurity officers here at TDC. They sit upstairs, first floor, walk all the way to the end of the corridor and you'll find them. We love visitors. We love questions. So please come and visit us if you have a biosecurity question. Biosecurity is primarily a regional council function. It operates under the Biosecurity Act, and that is largely led by MPI, or Biosecurity New Zealand, and then regionally delivered by councils under a regional pest management plan. And locally, operationally here, we work across all jurisdictions, and we work really closely with DOC, LINZ, MPI, other councils, other parts of this council, particularly with our top of the south neighbours, industry, community groups, and landowners. And we cover terrestrial land, freshwater, and marine. So right across the district. And primarily, traditionally, biosecurity has been about protecting agriculture, but it is more and more moving into protecting biodiversity, and it has a lot of far-reaching economic benefit for keeping on top of biosecurity in lots of reasons. And we deliver both on national legislation. So under the Biosecurity Act, we're required to support those national parts of the program, like the National Wild and Conifer Control Program, and then locally under our Regional Pest Management Plan. And in the Biosecurity Act, it requires the council to approve our operational plan and our review every year. Hence why I'm sitting here now. So we need to do that within 3 months of the end of the financial year. So given that we cover a really wide-ranging area and biosecurity and pests, potential pests are huge, could be in the hundreds of different species, we have a regional pest management plan that's developed by it's joint here, Nelson and Tasman, as a joint committee develops that, and the pests that end up in there are in there because we think we can get on top of them. So we don't include everything that could possibly be a pest. It's about being pragmatic about what we can get control, and that it's well supported by the community, and that it meets cost-benefit analysis. And so the cost of making the effort to control that is going to be outweighed by the benefit. And so that's a really key part of biosecurity. And then we end up with pests that are either an exclusion, which the Chilean needlegrass that's just gone around is one of those, eradication, so the likes of knotweed or Taiwan cherry, and then there's site-led progressive containment and sustained control programs. We deliver a little bit differently to other parts of council with enforcement because we do go looking for problems. We do go do surveillance. We do try and find those pests before they become a problem, and we we are primarily education first. Our enforcement action is very rare. It's not often that we spend a lot of time with landowners to help them control pests on their property, and generally it's really well supported. And beyond the regional pest management plan, which is what we've reported on here, we do a lot of other work. So there's a lot of parts of supporting our community on understanding these really widespread pests, and you'll see a bit of work come out. For example, after the floods that we had this year, we've had a really wide, there's just been weeds turn up everywhere. It's just been swaths of weeds coming out of those floods, and so we're supporting landowners to understand how to control those, even though they're not actually required to control them. And we also spend a lot of time looking for new incursions, so trying to prevent things arriving here, either arriving in the country via marine pathways or working with MPI, and into our area. So if they're already in somewhere else. So the golden clam that went around is in central North Island, just recently discovered in Waikato, and we're trying to keep that out of the South Island. So happy to take questions.
Councillor McMurray.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Firstly, congratulations. I've been away for 3 years, but prior to that, certainly the community response had been very favourable with the work you do. It's not generally one of the biggest agitators that we get. In terms of going forward, just an idea of some of the not happy faces. Just wondering, in terms of budget pressure and results, whether we're how we're tracking for keeping the happy faces up and the sad ones down.
It definitely depends on the program. So I think we're doing really well with, particularly with exclusion, and we were doing really well with eradication until the floods. And that will probably push those sorts of programs out. And then as you get further down the line, sustained control and progressive containment. Yeah, we make decisions based on our relatively small budget about where we put our efforts, and our efforts is in low incident pests that we know we can get on top of, because that's the cheap bit, and the further they spread, the more expensive they are. So
I guess what I was driving at is your low budget going forward. Is that going to see us getting more unhappy faces, or are we maintaining a reasonably level field?
I think we'll maintain a reasonably, well, as long as we don't get multiple floods, that would really upset the apple cart. But yes, I think we're doing reasonably well. But with pest management, you're never going to get all green faces, unfortunately. Yeah.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just want to take this chance to thank you guys for the report and all the work that you do, but especially acknowledge the work that community groups are doing and that landowners are doing, because it takes a massive amount of effort. And it's one of those areas in council where community groups really do continue to deliver and give us more bang for our buck. So I just really want to acknowledge them. Now, I understand it's not part of the report, and that it's outside of our area of responsibility at this time. But do you have any comment? I mean, with the discovery of the gorgeous Wellington centipede in Nelson and the Portuguese and the hornet in Auckland, like, where does that sit? At what point do they hit our radar? Where is it going to become part of our responsibility?
As soon as we see a report of that, and we do tend to get a heads up before it hits the media most of the time, although those didn't, we are on it as soon as we can. So for us, that effort is staff time. You would have seen Facebook posts go out giving a heads up about the hornet, and that is about getting on top of those things as quickly as we possibly can, and just getting people aware, because as you say, the community and landowners, they are our eyes. We can't possibly see every bit of land where these things are happening, and we get a huge amount of support for delivering that. And in the case of the millipede, we have, well, Lindsay has spoken to MPI and Nelson, and we will help Nelson do that. It's Nelson's patch that's happening in, but we will support them to make, if they need our help. Yeah.
Councillor Butler.
Okay. Thanks, Winnie. And I'd just like to congratulate the staff, because you actually operate with very few staff and achieve this amazing result. I just wondered whether or not, I know you've come in under budget, but whether or not you are anticipating that you are going to need more budget in the next annual plan. So that's number one. And then the second question is, I just wanted to know about the Pampas and Golden Bay, and it has got an unsmiley face, I think. So I just wondered, because it's just control area is the area, I think. And I just wondered what was happening there, whether it was, spreading badly, and whether or not you've got any community control. Yeah.
In terms of the budget, it won't be through the annual plan as an increase, but potentially through the long-term plan. We tend to try and stick to our long-term plan budgets. And we have had an increase in pressure on the Motueka Valley, particularly for knotweed. We have had a bit of an injection from central government funding, which will help us with that surveillance. That surveillance will tell us if we've got a problem, and if we've got a problem, we may have a budget problem, but hopefully the surveillance will tell us we've come out okay. Pampas, you probably know the Pampas better than me.
Yeah, so pampas grass is a major problem and has become quite widespread now throughout a lot of Tasman. And it was in the plan in the old strategy, and we had to take it out because it was just so time consuming. It was just popping up everywhere, and it's got very, very light seed, and the seed can travel 30, 40 kilometres away from the mother plant. So it's really, really difficult to control. And throughout the country, that pampas is really taking off. But we see Golden Bay as a sort of a special example of an area that we can probably, if we keep on top of it in that area, we can, we feel that we'll achieve success. So we are anything that we see there, we deal with. So but we're only concentrating on Golden Bay at this stage. Yeah.
I think it was the area actually.
That's right.
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. So
the West Coast.
Yeah.
Just the West Coast, not all of Golden Bay. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Neubauer and then Councillor Kinnemont.
Yeah, I've just got a question that might be of interest when TDC considers the budget it allocates to biosecurity. At a recent conference that I went to, I learned that bioinvasions form a larger economic threat than natural disasters. Is that something you can confirm or speak to?
I'm not an economist, but I would suspect, yes, the potential of pests, and the reason we have in this country such a strong biosecurity act that is very well supported no matter what government we're in, is because that recognition of anything that comes in could cost a huge amount of money. And so the importance of controlling our borders for biosecurity and then managing regionally as things come into the country or are already in the country is supported by really good legislation. You can throw you could throw as much money as you could think of towards it. There's always going to be things to work on, but we are very pragmatic in our team about being of picking what we think we can keep on top of and maintaining a realistic budget.
Okay, thanks, Winnie. Councillor Kinnemont and then Councillor Greenie.
Through you, Evan, Winnie, congratulations on getting under budget. It's huge. I appreciate that. Feral cats, where are they on your radar, or is it more Nelson's radar? Are they left to when there's an issue, then we'll bring it to the top, where you're just ignoring them? Just where are they?
We do have feral cats in the regional pest management plan. They are site led. So for Tasman, it's in Able Tasman and around the Nelson Lakes area. Yeah, so they are to support specific biodiversity projects. If we were to tackle feral cats across the whole district, it would need to meet a cost benefit analysis, of which would be quite an injection of cost.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Greenie.
Yep. Thanks for acknowledging where we are with the Portuguese millipedes. Let's hope it doesn't end up like Argentinian ants when we worked with Nelson last time. Just trying to get a sense of, and probably for the benefit of people in the room, what have been the changes since the last plan to this plan, or is it pretty much just a rollover in scope?
Sorry, clarifying the operational plan, like the annual operational plan.
Is there any change in scope on anything? Has it been added? Are we pulling back on anything?
So we went through a limited review last year. We finished that last year, which added some additional pests into our plan, and so that is a slight change in terms of recognising some of those as work. And then the only other change really is a bit of work around bird flu coming on its way, which has a bit of staff time to manage.
And the increase in budget between last year and this year? Or
No, we haven't.
no change in budget?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Groening. Councillor Fenhoe.
Thank you. Two questions. Are wallaby sightings common?
Not common, but we do get one or two a year. Typically end up being something else, usually hares. Yeah.
Thank you. I had a laugh about that when I read it. My other question is, do you do anything in regards to the bees, like specifically in regards to American foul brood and how that is wiping out bee colonies?
So there is I'm going to get the name wrong, but there is a national level program for dealing with threats to bees in terms of, so it's industry funded, and we would support them locally if they needed our help, but it's largely an MPI delivered program.
Thank you, Councillor Butler.
Thank you. Yeah, just the other thing was, we added wilding pines in a limited way, in a very complicated way, and I just wondered if whether there's been any engagement about the wilding pine from the point of view of the neighbours. Has anything happened at all? Because it was quite complicated and it was quite limited.
Yes, so it would be very few. I think two from memory, both in Golden Bay. One was in the Able Tasman area, which was raised by DOC, which is in an area where there's private land mixed in. So we've been trying to work out how our rules come in. So they've both been actually quite good tests of the rules. And yeah, the other one was in Golden Bay, both which were quite positive interactions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Move, by the way.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Butler. Is there a seconder? Councillor McNamara. Are there any further question? No, yeah, that's all good. Nothing further to the resolution now. It's been moved and seconded. If not, thank you very much for coming in and obviously presenting and doing that, and the work that you do in your everyday roles when you're not reporting to us, which is probably far more important. So thank you very much. I'll put the resolution. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. And I think that draws us to the conclusion of today's agenda. So I guess it's a very small taste of the range of things that we get to consider both in the various standing committees and also at council, from the very simple, straightforward and quick to the decidedly more complicated, from the specific to the almost more philosophical. So welcome to your first taste of council meetings. Thank you very much for everybody's attendance and contributions. And I'll just close with kia ora kia. Kia hiki te kororo, kia wātia, kia mama, te manawa o te tangata, kia u ki te ara mō tātou e ora nei, kia rongo, kia runga, kia tina, hui e, tai ki e.